So today we're going to be doing some markerless augmented reality in Unity 3D with the Wikitude SDK using their instant tracking or SLAM technology. SLAM stands for Simultaneous Localization and Mapping. Wikitude's 3D computer vision engine instantly tracks the user's surroundings in order to localize the device. When the user moves, the recorded 3D map of the scene gets extended. This will allow us to augment 3D objects without the use of a fiducial marker. Now, Timur Wali wanted to know, how do we detect the ground using markerless AR? This is where SLAM comes in. I've done a few other markerless AR videos before, but we've only been able to float objects in the air. Wikitude's instant tracking will actually allow us to detect surfaces so we can place objects. So today we're going to go through setting up Wikitude's sample scene for instant tracking, which was that scene with the furniture that you saw in the intro. A few people also wanted to be able to scale and move objects through screen touches, which this scene actually does by default. We will also go through modifying this scene a little bit so that we can augment our own object. So to get started with the Wikitude SDK, it can be downloaded from here. You will be redirected to a registration page. Once you complete it, Wikitude will send you a trial license key to your email. Now, once you have that, let's get started. Start a new Unity project and call it whatever you want. Unzip the Wikitude folder and find the Unity project. Drag this into your Assets folder. Go to File, Build Settings, and switch your platform to Android or iOS. Go to Wikitude, Samples, Scenes, and select the Instant Tracking scene. Go to Edit, Duplicate, and rename the scene. Drag it into your Assets folder so it's easy to find. Double-click the scene to reopen it. The Instant Tracking algorithm works in two distinct states. There is an initialization state that defines the origin of the tracking, which the user has to actively confirm. Next is the tracking state, where augmentations can actually be placed. To get the most accurate results, the user must also enter the height of their device in order to accurately adjust the scale of augmentations within the scene. Lucky for us, this is already done in the sample scene here. If we were to build this out to Android or iOS, we would have the working app that you saw in the intro where you can drag and place the furniture. The touch inputs are already in place for positioning and scaling the objects. Now, say for example, we want to add our dinosaur 3D model to the scene. Go to the Asset Store and download and import this free Allosaurus. Before we do anything, let's try to minify the scene a little bit without screwing things up. First, remove the Dock UI component from the Dock Game object. Delete the Model Button's background. Delete the 4 buttons below the clock button and rename the first one Dino Button. Enable the Dock Game object so we can see the button, then change its sprite to something else. Change its scale to something a little more manageable, and let's make it black. Just delete the child text for now. Let's also get rid of the image and title from the example header. On the controller game object, expand buttons and models. Change the size to 1 on each. Now let's create a dinosaur prefab so it can be added to our scene. Go to the Allosaurus folder, Sources, and drag in the Allosaurus idle into the scene. Change its position to 000. Double-click the animation in the inspector to reveal it in the Asset folder. With that highlighted, click and edit and change the wrap mode to loop and hit apply. Create an empty game object called Dino and make the Allosaurus idle its child. Make sure the Dino's parent position is 000. And also its child position must be 000. And rotate the child about its y-axis 180 degrees. With the Dino selected, add a box collider component. This is the area in which the touch events are detected, so scale it appropriately. Now, drag this whole game object into your Assets folder. This will create a prefab. Remove the current one from the scene. Click on the controller and drag in the Dino to element 0 of the models. In my demo video, I had the mesh grid and the button disappear when the model was active in the scene, so let's make that happen now by adding a script to the dinosaur prefab. Call it Dino Controller. Open this in MonoDevelop. Also open up the Instant Tracker controller script on the controller game object. Change the modifier from private to public on the grid renderer so we can access it from our other script. Go to the Set Scene Active function and make sure the grid renderer gets enabled before we loop through the models and set them inactive or active. Inside Dino Controller, we need to first create an Instant Tracker controller. Just call it Tracker Script. Create a private game object and call it Buttons Parent. Inside the Start function, let's create the references for our Tracker Script and Buttons Parent. Make sure the names of the objects are the exact same as in the scene because they are case sensitive. Let's make sure the grid renderer and buttons are disabled when the dinosaur gets instantiated by setting them inactive in the start functions. Now, use Unity's onEnable function to set them inactive in the case where tracking is lost and started again. Use Unity's onDisable function to set the button's parent active again when tracking stops. We do not have to do this with the grid renderer because the setSceneActive function of Instant Tracker Controller takes care of this already. To make this look a little bit better in landscape mode, change the reference resolution on the canvas scaler to 960 by 640. Lastly, click on Wikitude Camera and paste in the license key that you got from your email. Now, we should be ready to build this to our device. I'm going to go through getting this built out for iOS, but I will link to the Android instructions in the description down below. First, go to Plugins, iOS, and drag the Wikitude native SDK.framework onto your desktop. Go up to File, Build Settings, and add Open Scenes. Go to Player Settings and enter in your bundle identifier. Change the target minimum iOS version to 8.0 and enter in something for the camera usage description. Doesn't matter what. Now hit Build and Run. Once Xcode opens up, select your team. Go to Build Settings and search Bitcode. Change Enable Bitcode to No. Now search Swift and set Always Embed Swift Standard Libraries to Yes. Finally, go to the General tab and drag the Wikitude framework from your desktop into the Embedded Binaries section. Now you should be good to go. So that's it. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you want to see in the next video. Definitely stay tuned. We've got some cool things in the works.